Yo, what's good, everybody? It's Jack back with your boy Mike, getting into a little Bears breakdown here, and then preview and some keys looking ahead to the Cleveland Browns back at home at Soldier Field. Tough loss to the Green Bay Packers. I feel like there's been a lot of, sort of narrative about how competitive it was and how good they looked and how we should come out of there feeling good. I don't really buy into that. I don't really feel that personally. I feel a little bit just kind of sheer disappointment. I think it's a game they could have won, should have won. They sort of let it get away from them with a couple mistakes, a disgraceful first half, not getting it going, soon enough. Then too little, too late down the stretch, and you go from number one overall seed in the NFC, dropping all the way down to seventh, still very much in the heat of a tough gauntlet of a playoff race in the NFC right now. I think there's a very real possibility you're going to need 12 wins to even get in this year, as crazy as that may sound. So it's a bad loss. It is, but you got everything in front of you, control your own fate. You get the Packers one more time, so if you are able to take care of business at home, you'll still be feeling pretty good as far as your opportunities to win the division go and secure a solid playoff position. But yeah, that's kind of my general thoughts of, you can take that, you're competitive and shove it because you got to be winning football games. That's the bottom line. What are your thoughts after that Packers loss on Sunday?
Yeah, not too different than yours. Nervous about the defense. Some of these guys have been banged up, and you want to think they can come back and just be right at their what their highest level of play is for themselves. But usually takes some time to get there. And we don't have time to get guys there. And we need guys to get back and play. So I got some real concerns about the defense down this stretch. And like you said, that first half, offense had nothing going really. They just didn't. Packers to me looked like the much better team in the first half, much better. Second half, obviously we make some adjustments, we bounce back, we play better. Feels like a much more competitive game, which, hopefully they could put two halves of that together in 2 weeks when they play the Packers again. But yeah, it's a loss. I know they had a chance to tie it down at the end, but to me, it just kind of always felt like the Packers game to lose. It felt like they had control of most of it. I don't know, man. Not super discouraging, but also not super encouraging either. If you're asking me.
Yeah, fair enough. I like your point about the adjustments that were made. I do find, I guess I'm not even questioning it to say that I continue to find, but more and more I'm kind of just knowing that Ben Johnson's a great hire. I think, he will be a mainstay in Chicago for a good deal of time here, probably the next decade plus. Loving everything about the guy, what he's doing. But yeah, too many missed opportunities. That first half was just historically bad. You got to learn from it. You got to start better, especially on the road. You go into those road environments in these big games and you just you put a performance out like that and you let that crowd feed off of it. That home team just gets that much more comfortable. I mean, we talked about pressuring Jordan Love. I think Bears had one sack. It was a coverage sack. Montez Sweat got to him, but they hit him once. The next play, he threw an interception. The rest of the game, they didn't do shit to him. He was just chilling back there, doing his thing, doing whatever he wanted. We talked about Caleb Williams needing to have a better, I kind of said you could poke holes in this because he hasn't had a great completion percentage all year. And I know he was playing good quarterback, I would say, with a lot of when he was kind of in trouble and he was throwing it away. You love to see that. I feel like that's maturity, that's growth, and I understand how that eats into your completion percentage. Still just missing too many easy ones, missing too many guys that are open. DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland are all top 15 guys in separation, and I think it's just a lot to do with the way that Ben Johnson's scheming it up. The completion percentage should be better. It has to be better, and I feel like it's kind of something that's holding this offense back from, sustaining drives. So they got to figure that out. They got to clean it up. But I'm still, mostly positive on the outlook for the season. I just hate losing to the Packers. I feel like it's just, you got to get over that hump if you want to win the division. And the way that it's going this year in the NFC, I see 3 teams from the NFC West. I find it hard to believe they're not all going to be in. So winning the division is your best path to ensure that you get yourself a spot in that postseason. So it hurts. I don't know. You got any last thoughts you want to throw in to kind of put a pin in that Packers before we move on to the upcoming game against Cleveland?
I don't think so. I mean, while I'm saying,
What were your thoughts about just, if we kind of, I know it's not fair to do this, but if we really take down the microscope and go to that kind of all-encompassing decision at the end there of sort of nursing the clock, then taking the timeout, then not running the ball on that fourth down play, rolling out to the left, do you question the play call? Do you question the clock management, or do you kind of feel good about that and just he missed him?
I mean, ultimately, and I'm as big of a Caleb Williams lover as there is out there. I support the guy in a lot of like weird ass group chats I'm in. Ultimately, like the Cole Kmet was open. Like there was an opportunity to hit him, score that touchdown. God knows what happens from there, but it was open. Caleb was a little late. I'm not going to pretend like I know why he was late or anything like that, but ultimately it was open. Personally, did I feel like that Packers defense was gassed? Did I feel like they were on the back foot? Do I think that milking the clock there maybe like gave them a chance to get their breath and play a little more stout run defense? I do. Like when the Packers were really on their back foot there, I would have liked to seen not hurry up offense, but a little bit quicker than they were operating to maybe get that first down and to set things up from there. But Ben Johnson to me has proven that he puts legitimate thought into these situations and he's pretty good at handling them. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that. Kind of along the same lines of feeling like Green Bay was on the back foot there. If you score a touchdown, I personally would have probably elected for overtime. Sounds like Johnson would have gone for two, try to get out of there with a win, which okay, more power to him too if that's what he thinks is the way to go. But just felt like the Bears were starting to dictate things there on the line of scrimmage, and I don't know. I probably personally would have elected for extra point, go to overtime, but that man knows more football. He's forgotten more football than I'll ever know. So I'm not going to pretend to know more football than Ben Johnson. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Caleb Williams, I like him. I think he's the guy. Nothing that happened in the game makes me think differently. He missed the throw. He was late and he threw an interception on a play where he could have thrown a touchdown. And that's the difference in the game at the end of the day. Hopefully he could shake it off, come back confident, and find a way to lead us to a few victories down the stretch.
Gonna have to, man. Gonna have to. And that leads us pretty perfectly into the next portion of this where we start to get in the keys. A look ahead to a Cleveland Browns game coming back home at Soldier Field. Supposed to be potentially a little bit of cold weather, but no reason to overhype it or nothing. Both teams are going to be playing in the same conditions, same field. It's not going to be benefiting or hurting one team more than the other. You just go out there and deal with it. Deal with the task at hand. And I think they will this week. They're going to have to. Schedule's a gauntlet, right? This is the last one probably of the year that I think they'll for sure be favored. I guess there's maybe a chance they end up being favored against Detroit, depending on how these next couple weeks shake out.
Yeah, only because it's at home.
Right. But yeah, your big favorites this week, you have to get this one because, we don't need to do the whole schedule breakdown, but I mean, just quick look ahead in this playoff run. Like after Cleveland, you go Green Bay, San Fran, Detroit. So that's three teams that are all going to be competing for the playoffs. This is the last one. You can't overlook it. You gotta notch this one on your belt. Do you have any sort of general thoughts before we start dipping into the keys?
No, you're nailing it on the head. Got to find a way to win this game, even though in theory the Detroit game's probably going to be more important. Maybe that San Francisco game is more important, but man, got to find a way to win this game. This is the one game where you're going to be for sure favored, just like you said. Can't let this one get away. So yeah, I'm with you.
I think those other games are 100% more important, but I think if you can't say it's a must win because regardless of what happens, if you're going to have the opportunity to take care of business. I mean, if you beat the Packers and you beat the Lions, there's a really good shot you're probably still going to win the division. Losing this game does not allow you any room for error.
Zero.
You have to win this one, and then if you lose to a good team in San Francisco on the road, it's probably not going to end your playoff hopes. But if you don't get this one, you got to do something real special in those last three. So do not let this opportunity slip. All right, let's get into your keys. We always try to throw at least 3 keys at you guys. Keys to a Bears victory. I feel like we're pretty consistently solid with the ones that we put out there. last week. We don't need to keep rehashing it, but I think everything we talked about was spot on. And the game sort of went the way that it did, and we missed out on a couple of those big ones that I think would have certainly made the difference. This week, what is key number one to get a Bears victory at the Lakefront in Chicago?
So before I get into the three keys to a Bears victory, I don't usually watch the entire game of the opponent before we play them. But I saw Shedeur's stats, and I was like, okay, I got to see how real this performance was. So I went and watched the entire Cleveland game. So last week against the Titans. Disclaimer, I've not watched any other Cleveland games from start to finish, only this one. But on NFL.com, you could watch these games in like 45 minutes. So I went back and watched this game. I got couple thoughts before we get into the keys. First off, Cleveland special teams is ass. So I'm hoping our special teams could make some things happen this week. Tennessee had a punt block. Cleveland muffed a punt, if I remember right. Like their special teams is ass. So hopefully the Bears special teams could do some things this weekend. And then second off, I felt like anytime they were starting to get a little bit of momentum, they were getting a penalty. Cleveland can beat themselves. So let them beat themselves. Don't get in their way of beating themselves this week. And at the same time, don't beat yourselves with some knucklehead penalties. Let's play an efficient, respectable game, clean game, not a ton of penalties, and get out of that cold weather and into the warm locker room. But with those couple points, we'll get into the keys, Jack. First key.
That's a good. Just quickly, I'll say, just kind of piggybacking on that. Early on in the season, those self-inflicted wounds were just hindering us, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It did seem like that ticked up a little bit again in that Green Bay game. So I love that you sort of shouted that out just to kind of preface this whole thing. Got to tighten that stuff back up, man. It's just too much of a killer.
For sure, no doubt. And it feels like there's been a game or two where you feel like, wow, we're really playing pretty clean, but got to get back to those ways, no doubt about it. All right, my first key, it's been a key in a number of games I've mentioned, but it's the most obvious key this week. Shedeur Sanders, he throws a good ball. He's relatively accurate. I know his completion percentage is dog shit right now, but don't let that fool you. The guy can make some good throws. He also is prone to make some very bonehead decisions with the football as well. Got to take advantage of that when he makes some bonehead decisions and get some takeaways. So I'm hoping not only from Shedeur's bad decision-making at times, but also Dennis Allen maybe being able to disguise some things and confuse Shedeur, that we can find our way into getting a couple takeaways this week. I'll say 2 takeaways, but find a way to take the ball away a couple times. 3 takeaways, I feel like there's no doubt we're getting out of there with a win, knock on wood. But I think they should be able to find some opportunities to take the ball away, and they might need to just because the way this team is built. So takeaways, it's been a key a number of times, but that's my first key.
It's a huge part of the formula to any victories this year, right? Last week, once again, they only had the 1 interception, lost the football game. Once they do kind of get at least 2, 3, 4, the way that they have been consistently, which is, we talked about it early on in the season. That sort of thing you don't think is sustainable, but for this team, it really sort of has been, and it needs to be. That's kind of one of the huge differentiators between wins and losses for them. And yeah, I like your point about Dennis Allen. I kind of would like to hope you can trust, a veteran DC who's been in this league for a long time, had a lot of success, had some head coaching experience. You trust that veteran coaching staff type of guy to be able to confuse a rookie quarterback on the road, making I think this is only going to be his 3rd or 4th start. So yeah, I like that key a lot. Heat him up, do what you got to do, give him some tough looks, change some things, disguise some stuff in the back end, and kind of, lead him in to a couple of those game-changing mistakes. I love that one. Key number 2.
All right, key number 2. You have made this a key in a couple of games this year. Don't let number 95 wreck the game. Malik Collins, stud defensive tackle. Mason Graham looks really good as a rookie. I think he's got a really bright future in the NFL, although he might be out with some injury stuff this week. There's no denying who the star is on that Cleveland Browns front. Do not let 95 wreck the game. I have flashbacks to Max Crosby earlier in the season where he almost single-handedly basically beat us on the Vegas front, doing some freak things. This dude's more freakier than Max Crosby. Don't let him wreck the game. Do what you got to do to neutralize him. That's key number 2.
He's in a world of his own, man. He really is. There's a lot of good I mean, it's the NFL. They're the best players in the world. Even if you're number 53 man on the roster, you're in the 0.0001% of the universe. But he's seriously in a league of his own, man. I mean, I'm not going to pretend I know a lot about LT. And the career that he had, I've seen highlights, all that cool stuff. Drawing those comparisons, I think I'm, well versed enough to realize the gravity of that. It's, remarkable that you hear people who did see that career draw those parallels with what they're seeing in Myles Garrett and how good he is, how big of a difference maker he is, how much of a freak he is. There's no way around it. He's going to do his thing. And like you said, you just can't let it derail the game. I think he's only 3 sacks away from breaking the single season record held by Michael Strahan. Don't let him get it on Sunday. I think he'll probably be in okay shape. But yeah, he's going to make some plays. Hopefully Caleb can kind of do what he has been, in my opinion, excellent at over the course of his career. When Myles Garrett is getting in there, beating his man because he's gonna, just don't let it, really unravel and turn into some catastrophic, scoop and score, pick six on a tip ball or something from him. But yeah, it's going to be a factor when you're lining up across from Myles Garrett. Dude's a monster. Key number 3.
Key number 3, I'm going to kind of create a little phrase here. If you stay consistent with the run game, I think that explosive runs will come. Last week, Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, the two backs for Tennessee, they started out kind of rough. Tennessee stayed committed. They ended up, Tony Pollard had a couple touchdowns over like 30, 40 yards. I think with this offensive line that we got, the mentality that the Bears have, the identity that they have, I think if they stay committed to this run game, I think some explosive 20-plus yard runs will come. And I think that could be a huge factor in slowing Garrett down, opening up the pass. I think it just opens everything up and we get a couple of those explosive on the ground. So I'm going to say get 3 or 4 explosive runs, stay committed to that run game, and those explosive runs will come.
I like that one. You saw it last week, the way that they, they kind of just kept pounding in the first half, weren't getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden, the second half, they warmed down, started hitting some licks. Yeah, I think that's just kind of the nature of it. The way that offensive front, credit to them, just sort of imposes their will physically. They've been awesome, all year for the most part, especially since coming out of that bye after week 4. They've consistently, week in and week out, that run game does not disappoint. If it is going to be as cold as they're forecasting, you like to hope and know you can sort of rely and lean into that piece of things. And yeah, I like, we talk about it all the time about like how I'd be sick if they drafted a running back before in the 7th round. But like, I like this sort of combo they have. I think you do get some good thump out of Monungai. So maybe you kind of use him, as your battering ram, and then Swift pops 1 or 2 off for those explosives you're talking about. I think that's a real strong recipe. General thoughts going into the game. I know the Bears are a 7.5 point favorite. You think that they, you feel good about that line? You think they feel good about them winning the game? You think this is a letdown spot kind of sandwich between these massive Packer games? How do you think it goes?
With where they're at, man, and what they got left in the season, shame on them if there's any sort of letdown at all. I don't see it as a possible letdown spot. If it is, then I will be very disappointed. So I don't think it's a letdown spot. I think they get out of there with a win. Do they cover that 7.5 point spread? That's to be seen. I know I'll let you speak on it. You want to share your thoughts on the game. I know you made a pretty strong prediction in the best bets video.
I do. I think the Bears roll them. I love the Bears this week. They're one of my best bets of the weekend is Bears minus 7.5. I think they win by at least 2 touchdowns. I think they're prepared. I think they take it very seriously. No one is immune to a letdown spot. I'm not going to pretend that Ben Johnson is, and, he's coached basically, barely more than 10 games in the NFL at this point. But I just think they're going to be ready to go. I think they know what's at stake. I think they have enough veterans in the room, enough guys who have been, fringe contender type teams. I think you get to certain points in your career, all of us, whatever you're doing in life, but particularly in sports, I think you kind of realize the weight of what's going on and how few and far between certain opportunities are. I think those veterans in the locker room, maybe it feels like the Bears are a year early, or maybe they've arrived too soon. I think those guys in there are going to let them know, like, hey, you don't know what next year holds. You certainly don't know what the year after that holds. You got to take the bull by the horns. And you got to, jump on these opportunities when you have them. I think they'll do it. I think they absolutely blow them out of the water on Sunday. I love the Bears to take care of business this week.
I love it. I hope they do. 7.5-point spread. I'll predict they cover. Say 27-17 Bears.
I like it. I think that defense is going to your point, I think that hopefully they will confuse them a little bit. I like the Bear. I really like one of the reasons I like the number and do, kind of what I believe in what I just said is because I think there is going to be a more of an emphasis on that fast start, that better start. And I think they're just going to put their foot on the gas early and stomp them out. And I think if it is cold, if it is shitty weather, I think you're going to get a 3-10, 3-11, whatever they are, team to just fold on you. And I think you could really just run away with it, blow the brakes off of them, have yourself a party at Soldier Field. All right. But yeah, back to the keys. Key number 1, make sure you sort of contain Shedeur Sanders, kind of bait him into some mistakes, kind of that cat and mouse game between him and Dennis Allen in the defense that's been turning people over all year. You're going to have to do it again on Sunday with the rookie quarterback. Key number 2, watch out for Myles Garrett. Dude's a monster. He's going to get his here and there. Just don't let it totally change the game and flip anything for you. And then key number 3, it's just been the bedrock of what we've been doing on the offensive side of the ball all season. Keep running that thing, keep toting it, commit to it chunk by chunk, and it'll kind of break the walls down to lead to those explosives that are going to put you in a real good position to win the football game. Any last thoughts before we jump out of here?
No, it's fun that we're this deep in the season. We're playing some meaningful football games, Jack. Like you said, you'd like to think that this is the start of something special, but you never know. So make sure you enjoy it. Look at Washington last year. They thought they had the start of something special. This year they're one of the first teams to pick in the draft probably, so make sure we enjoy it. We got to get a win this week. That's my last thought.
Yeah, amen. No, like you said, enjoy it, man. It's fun to be having these conversations in December. During our best bets, we were kind of joking about, I'm also on the Rams, and we were joking about, like, well, would it be better for the Bears if the Rams or the Lions won? Do you want the 1 seed? Do you want to have to worry about the Lions? Like, think about that, man, versus talking about a 10-game losing streak. It's a good spot to be. And yeah, let's take care of business, keep it rolling, keep the party rocking for years and years to come here. Bears.